Welcome to your new religion, the Church of Dog. Welcome back to the Church of Dog, brothers and sisters. Thank you for joining us for our sermon. 2 true stories about the awesomeness of dogs and the awesomelessness of some humans. Well, it took only one sermon for the question to be asked. Reverend Canis, what about cats? Let me be very clear. The Church of Dogs celebrates all living creatures, with the exception of some troublemaking bipeds. And I must come clean. I don't live with a dog at this tragically dogless point in time, though I think they're the greatest mammals on Earth. We have 3 wonderful cats and they are quite loved, so please don't assume that our new religion marginalizes felines. In fact, cats play a major role in one of today's stories during our segment, Human Evolosers. I have an important note before we begin. Personally, I get quite upset when I'm tricked into listening to a true story that does not have some sort of positive outcome for non-human animals, and the latter is what you can expect in my sermons. I am Reverend Canis, and here is your first true story.
It is time for
This Dog in History.
He seemed frozen in place, until he turned his head and scanned the landscape to his left. After a few moments, he raised his muzzle into the light wind, half closing his eyes as he tried to catch the scent. The surroundings were desolate and still, mostly just cracked dirt and death, no signs of life anywhere. But he knew it was out there, probably injured. It had no place to go, and he was confident he could find it. He would find it. It was survival of the fittest, and he was fit. Suddenly, there was the smell, just the slightest trace of its scent, nearly lost in the acrid air. He wagged his tail, but just for a moment. This was life or death in the wild, and he needed to hunt it down once and for all. He took careful steps in the lifeless terrain, stepping thoughtfully over a blackened branch. More of the faint scent. He was going in the right direction. The only sound seemed to be his own footsteps, otherwise the area was just a wasteland. He sensed movement and tensed, but it was only a falling, lifeless twig, and he returned his gaze ahead of him. Many more steps into the void, more snaps from his paws on the ground. The scent was stronger here. It was in this area some time ago, but still he knew it hadn't traveled far, not in its condition. He was a hunter, and he was good at it. The reward for his efforts lay ahead. He proceeded, and the scent grew with each minute. A white haze hung in the air just above the ground, disturbed only by his methodical steps. And then he heard the sound, albeit distant and faint. Suddenly he wanted to run, to find it and end it now. But he had to be patient. He didn't try to control his excitement, but he also couldn't lose focus. There was again a deep bellow and grunts somewhere out there. He was on the move, faster now. The grunting seemed to increase with each step. It was almost over. Faster and faster, increasing the noise he made when disturbing the ground. But it didn't matter now. It had nowhere to go. He knew it, and it knew it. Motion just up ahead. More grunting and bellowing. Faster. Then there it was, low on a tree, its fur dirty and damaged. There was fear in its eyes, and it looked around for a possible escape route. The dog couldn't control himself any longer. This was it. He stared at the creature and opened his jaw, revealing his white teeth. He barked loudly and continuously, with sudden praise from humans behind him. Yes, he was a good boy. Humans suddenly jumped into action, preparing to retrieve the injured koala bear from its perch. The tree was black as night, like the rest of the trees and brush. It was 2019, this was the Australian outback, and the destruction from the wildfires was endless. Whether it was arson or global warming, humans were responsible for this terrible devastation. But there were also heroes, working tirelessly to save injured wildlife. The dog was named Bear, an animal tracker for the International Fund for Animal Welfare. Bear loved his job, and he jolted back and forth with excitement for fulfilling his mission. Bear saved a koala's life that day as it was transported to an animal triage unit to be cared for and rehabilitated before returning to the wild. But Bear wasn't done. The animal tracker, with a specialty of koalas, would find a second koala, then a third. In absolute fact, this hero dog would go on to find more than 100 koalas in need of help during the 8 months of the horrific fires. You serve as an example of greatness, Bear. May you be blessed forever by the Church of Dog.
Hey, it's
Community News.
Thank you to all who subscribed and commented in our first sermon. Your spreading of the word of dog is invaluable. Continuing our ever-growing list of official holidays, here are 5 more Church of Dog holidays that can be used as a religious exemption from work. December 25th, Dogmas Day. It's always a good day to be a dog, but today is different. Well, we want to keep our holy dogs healthy. An exception is made for human food on this day. Joy to the dog world. Avoid the chocolate, nuts, avocado, corn on the cob, the onion family, and other toxic or hazardous food to dogs. But let your best boy or girl in on the dining celebration when you can. Feel free to celebrate that other traditional holiday today, but don't forget that today is about our furry saviors and they should not be stuck at the kids' table. January 6th, Bear Day. Not the terrifying, awesome, hibernating type. This day celebrates the heroic acts of a dog named Bear, a koala-saving good boy from Australia, the protagonist in our first story today. January 7th, Pink Sliver Day. On this day, you are extremely lucky if you happen to see a dog with a bit of tongue outside its mouth. If your dog partner is one who actually has a long, unruly tongue that frequently hangs outside of its mouth anyway, then you are already lucky, brothers and sisters. They are adorable all the time. March 1st, Cat Day. The Church of Dogs' acknowledgement of the canine's feline cousins. Despite the playful sibling rivalry between dogs and cats, this is a celebration of the more finicky half, who are also very loved. April 1st, Day of Fools. Celebrating all those excellent human beings who do so much good. Oppenheimer, Trump, Pol Pot, Pharma Guy. You know, those who have made the world a better place. April Fools. As always, we welcome your personal suggestions for official dog-related holidays in the comments. Be part of the early foundation of the Church of Dog.
And now, let's get to
Human Evolosers.
Warning, the following true story contains... How can I put this? Let's just say that I assure you that no harm comes to non-human animals. Proceed at your discretion. Today's true human Evoloser story takes place in South Africa in 2018. 3 to 4 hunters walk into the wild. No, this is not the beginning of a joke, rather the events of a day that would make international news. The hunters parked their Land Rover and unpacked supplies and guns. The most popular for this type of game was the 577 Nitro Express, a gun that could bring down a rhino. Coincidentally, they were hunting rhinos. Not for the flesh or even the demented sport, but for the tusks, on which some humans placed a large value for some reason. Unlike the ivory of elephants, rhino tusks are made up of hardened keratin, the same as fingernails and toenails. So there they were, the brave poachers, seeking their fortune in toenail horns. The poachers began a short journey to a known crash of rhinos, the actual name for our rhino group. I could have said herd, which is also correct, but a crash of rhinos is just too awesome. South African wildlife authorities actually know nearly every group of large animals in their locations, but alas, the poachers were not privy to that knowledge. The details of the poachers' walk are unknown, but we know that before reaching the crash of rhinos, there was a pesky obstacle. An obstacle that the wildlife personnel could have warned them about. It is likely that the poachers were readying their weapons of death as they neared the crash, but the route that these courageous poachers took to shoot unarmed slow rhinos also had another group of animals that authorities knew well, a particularly large pride of lions, which were not quite as defenseless. The rhinos were only a short distance from the hunters, but they might as well have been 1,000 miles away. The attack came suddenly and in overwhelming force, according to authorities, based on the number and behavior of that exact lion pride. Later evidenced by the scene, it was complete chaos, a buyer's market in which the supply of lions was large, but demands for lions from the poachers was low. Nevertheless, the lions wasted no time and gave, quote, 2 to 3 humans, end quote, an involuntary permanent nap. You may have noticed that I began this story by saying 3 to 4 poachers, then 2 to 3 human permanaps at the scene. In fact, authorities, even after a thorough investigation at the scene, were unable to determine exactly how many poachers had been permanapped. However, one poacher, after suffering injuries, was somehow able to get back to their vehicle and find a nearby tourist resort to find help. This man was visited by authorities to get a statement, but he was actually catatonic. No. Unable to communicate after witnessing things. The Church of Dog does not celebrate the horrors faced by the poachers or the mental health issue plaguing the living poacher, but we do celebrate that no rhinos or lions were harmed in the incident. That's all for the sermon today, dog lovers. If you wish, subscribe, comment, and most importantly, join our growing faith so that you may be an original member when we are just beginning. And if you should feel particularly generous, please consider sending a few bucks to the International Fund for Animal Welfare, as mentioned in our first story today. Bear helps koalas and you can help him. Now, go forth, share the good word of dog, and as always, treats be with you. Thank you to the BBC, LiveScience.com, BringFido.com, Pavi Inn, JNN from Yonkers, RFY, and Narrakeet for content assistance and spreading the good boy word.